Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul is now on the record, and Attorney General, it's good to have you with us. I want to, we're reading some of the impact that you've described in this lawsuit. What would be the immediate impact of this executive order if it were allowed to stand?
We rely on citizen birth information for what is the Department of Public Health, Healthcare and Family Services, or various departments. And so, we've been accustomed to the 14th Amendment, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, meaning what it says for some time now. And our government, just like other government and our citizenry, has relied on that plain language for the administration of responsibilities to our respective citizens.
Did I read correctly that you and some of the other attorneys general involved here have American citizenship by birthright?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and the executive order tries to define it in a certain way, but my mother was not yet a citizen at the time of my birth. My father, I believe, had been naturalized at the time of birth. Both of my parents were Haitian immigrants.
This only applies to people going forward 30 days after it was signed, and the courts have intervened already, but people in your position from this point going forward would no longer have that citizenship if this were allowed to stand. As we look at this, if we set this immigration issue aside for a moment and just look at the lawful exercise of executive power, on other issues, you have vigorously defended executive powers in an emergency, even over that of the legislature or of the courts. Do you consider the influx of newly arriving migrants an emergency, or do you acknowledge that the executive branch has the power to declare something like that an emergency?
The executive branch certainly has the power to respond to emergencies or even non-emergencies, and to there's limited action the executive branch can take through executive order. But it's important to note one of those things is not violating our Constitution, the plain language of our Constitution, whether in this case with regards to birthright citizenship is violative of the 14th Amendment, or with regards to the DOJ memo that was issued, the suggestion of commandeering state and local officials to do federal responsibility. Our Supreme Court has ruled twice already that's violative of our 10th Amendment.
And for our St. Louis viewers, of course, the 14th Amendment, rooted in St. Louis history, the Dred and Harriet Scott decision argued at the Supreme Court, first filed at a federal courthouse right down the street from our studios here now. I want to ask you, shifting gears here a little bit, about how local and state law enforcement might go about partnering up with, or how they're going to handle orders from federal law enforcement. We know that President Trump's administration has suggested local law enforcement should assist them in deporting undocumented migrants that are here without their proper paperwork. But you've just issued some guidance that says Illinois laws govern law enforcement interactions with immigrant communities, and says, quote, law enforcement agencies in Illinois are largely prohibited from participating in immigration enforcement. Is this, what's the reason for putting out this guidance now? Is there anything changing in the way you're putting forth these rules as they apply to the Illinois Trust Act?
We put out the guidance before, so this isn't just now happening, but we're making it available. We have heard from various law enforcement departments, and want to make it clear. And then one of the things I want to make clear is that even my office collaborates with federal law enforcement agencies, including Homeland Security investigations on criminal investigations. That nothing in the Trust Act prevents that collaboration. So it's important to note that there's nothing in the Trust Act or our guidance that suggests that we don't collaborate with criminal investigations. We do so on human trafficking, on drug trafficking, on organized retail crime, gun trafficking, and other matters, whether they involve non-citizens or citizens.
I suppose that's what I was trying to understand. Reading this guidance is, when is it appropriate for local or state law enforcement to collaborate with federal officials on immigration in particular? For example, I'm reading here from your guidance where it says a local law enforcement agency in Illinois cannot give an immigration agent access to individuals in its custody. But if they're in police custody, aren't they already suspected of a crime?
They may be suspected of a crime, and quite frankly, the federal law enforcement would have access to knowing that they're in custody. There are websites that even lay people can look up names and find out that they're in custody. So it doesn't require any collaboration on that front. But if there's a criminal investigation, if there's a criminal subpoena or something of that nature, law enforcement can and should collaborate. What law enforcement should not do is partake in civil enforcement of immigration. Our federal government has given that duty to Homeland Security through ICE. And it's their job. It's the job of local law enforcement to focus on enforcing the criminal laws of the state of Illinois.
It's quite a contrast between Illinois and Missouri. In Missouri, the Attorney General and the incoming governor have suggested that state and local law enforcement should go about every person suspected of a crime, running a background check on them to see if they have proper documentation. So it's an interesting split screen. In your guidance that you've given out to local law enforcement, you say Illinois police must notify a foreign government or must allow that suspect to contact that foreign government if they arrest a foreign national, but cannot give that same notification to the American government. Is that the right policy?
That's what the guidance says, yeah.
I guess I'm asking for the justification there. It quotes the Vienna Convention, from 50 years ago. But what is the rationale that
whether it's from 50 years ago or not, the rationale is connected to the Vienna Convention.
Mm-hmm. And in today's context, why is that the right policy, that the law enforcement are prohibited from notifying the American government,
because it's a policy that we entered into in the Vienna Convention, just as the right policy is to follow the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment was more than 50 years ago. It still applies to today. And so we don't get to pick and choose.
I hear you. President Trump has also targeted diversity, equity, and inclusion benchmarks in federal government and federal agencies across the country. We're also seeing a number of large American corporations reverse course on DEI policies they've had in their corporations. That includes Walmart, and you've urged them in a recent op-ed to reconsider. You've highlighted Costco and maybe other big box stores like Target and others who have upheld or doubled down on their DEI. What do you see as the impetus for all this? You mentioned that in your op-ed I read that just because the politics are changing here doesn't mean that the background and the things that brought us to consider all this has changed.
That's right. Our country has a long history of having historically excluded some individuals from participation in all of the opportunities of economic opportunities and educational opportunities. And so there's been effort to make sure that there are pipelines and such to make sure that we reverse course on that. And, I strongly believe that that's a policy that we should embrace. We should embrace all Americans. We have non-discrimination laws, and we should not violate those, even in the interest of diversifying our workforce or diversifying our higher education institutions. But you can do things to make sure that you focus on being inclusive. There have been consulting companies that have analyzed this and demonstrated a strong business interest towards the bottom line of businesses to make sure they embrace diversity. They sell products to people of all races, right? And there's certain cultural differences that exist in different communities that might mandate different approaches to how you sell products and how you market them. It's valuable to have a diverse workforce and diverse leadership to make sure you implement such things.
And I saw in your op-ed that you even mentioned the term DEI hire being deployed in derisive fashion in some political context. But you do see, if I read you correctly, you seem to also suggest that maybe, if I'm reading you correctly, that some DEI pushes have gone too far. You say, quote, as we review and adjust programs where necessary. Where is it necessary to adjust some of these DEI programs in your view?
As I just said, wherever, if there are any programs that, for whatever reason, are discriminatory, just like any other discriminatory employment or education action, they should be reviewed. So anything that is a strict quota, for instance, versus having goals, having outreach programs, having diversity training, training on how you approach those with that might have disabilities. These things are being eliminated, and I think that's outrageous.
My last question for you, because I know you have a lot of important work on your desk as it pertains to this birthright citizenship lawsuit and a number of other things, but you talked about the majority opinion and a vocal minority in your op-ed. If that's true, why has some of this nativist, nationalist rhetoric been so effective?
Well, divisiveness has been effective in American politics of late. What has been used as a tool of it is social media. We collectively, as attorneys general, both Republican and Democrats, have come together on focusing on how social media has had negative impact on young people. But the reality is that social media has had such a negative impact on adults as well. And we're more divided as a country, unfortunately, because folks have focused on dividing us. And I think that's not in a long-term interest of our country. And I think we need to reverse course on that.
A lot of the billionaires who own those platforms sitting right there on the front row of the inauguration of President Trump. Perhaps more to come on that front with Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. We'd love to have you back again in the future. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.